Today, we're diving into a battle that tore England apart for almost 100 years. But this wasn't just a war fought with armies and cannons. It was a war over one single powerful idea. Who really gets to be in charge? An idea that, believe it or not, would go on to shape modern governments all over the world. It all really boiled down to one explosive question. Who has the ultimate authority in a country? Is it the monarch, someone born to rule? Or is it the people, speaking through their parliament? In 17th century England, the answer to that question was going to be written in blood. At the very heart of this whole conflict was this idea, the divine right of kings. You see, when the Stuart dynasty took power in 1603 with King James I, they had this very clear, very strong belief. God put them on the throne, and because of that, they answered only to God. Not to laws, not to tradition, and definitely not to parliament. And just like that, the stage was set for a massive showdown. On one side, you've got kings who believe their power is absolute, a gift from God. And on the other, you have a parliament that believes its whole job is to control the government and, this is the crucial part, the nation's money. These two ideas, well, they were on a collision course. King James I, this guy was not subtle about his views at all. He even wrote a book basically saying that a king could do whatever he wanted, make any law he pleased. As you can probably guess, that extraordinary claim did not go over well with the folks in Parliament. So when James's son, Charles I, took the throne in 1625, he just doubled down on everything his father believed. He was absolutely determined to rule his own way, and almost right away, he started clashing with Parliament, especially whenever he needed money and they just said no. But Parliament wasn't just going to roll over. In 1628, they pushed back hard with this landmark document called the Petition of Right. It didn't even create new laws. It just forced the king to admit that the old ones still applied to him. Things like you can't just demand money from people and you can't throw them in jail without a good reason. Charles agreed, but, he really didn't want to. The trust between them was completely shattered. So the king had made a promise to follow the law, but his actions told a totally different story. It was pretty clear he had no intention of letting Parliament get in his way. With tensions just boiling over, England was headed straight for a collision. And here's how fast it all fell apart. First, Charles just gets rid of Parliament for 11 years. Then he starts trying to force his religious views on really devout Protestants, groups like the Puritans and the Scots. Now, to them, the king's policies looked dangerously similar to the Catholicism they saw in absolute monarchies like France and Spain. This whole religious mess actually sparks a war with Scotland, which Charles loses badly. Suddenly, he's broke and desperate, and he has no choice but to call Parliament back. And let me tell you, this Parliament returned ready for a fight. By 1642, the whole country was split right down the middle. On one side, you had the Cavaliers, the king's guys, known for their fancy clothes and long flowing hair. On the other, the Roundheads, Parliament supporters, often Puritans and merchants, known for their plain style and, you guessed it, short cropped hair. This wasn't just a political divide. You could literally see it walking down the street. Now, the Roundheads, they found their champion in this man, Oliver Cromwell. He wasn't some famous general or high-born nobleman. Nope. He was a country gentleman who put together a totally new kind of army, super disciplined, highly motivated, and deeply religious. And his God-fearing soldiers, they turned out to be unstoppable. And amidst all this epic political drama, it's easy to forget about the real people, the human cost. This amazing painting by Van Dyck shows the children of Charles I. Those two little boys, Charles and James, they would one day become kings themselves. But first, this political storm was about to make them orphans and send them into exile. The war didn't just end with Parliament winning. It ended with a truly shocking act that sent tremors across Europe, and it led to this wild, radical experiment in how to run a country. This is the climax. After Cromwell's army won, a small group of military hardliners, basically Parliament, kicking out anyone who might not go along with their plan. This radical new parliament then put King Charles I on trial for treason, and on January 30th, 1649, they cut off his head in public. This had never happened before. A king killed by his own subjects? So, with the king gone, this new, smaller parliament declared England a commonwealth, a republic. No king, no House of Lords. Sounds good, right? In theory, the people, through their parliament, were finally in charge. But the reality was something very, very different. And here is the great, massive irony of this whole revolution. The real power wasn't with Parliament. It was with the guy who controlled the army, Oliver Cromwell. And when he got tired of Parliament's arguments, he did the exact same thing the king had done. He marched in with soldiers and shut it down. Eventually, they named him Lord Protector, and he ruled as a military dictator. Well, after Cromwell died, the whole republic thing just kind of fell apart. England was tired. Tired of military rule, tired of the strict Puritan laws. The country basically decided, you know what, maybe having a king wasn't so bad after all. So in 1660, they invited the executed king's son, Charles II, to come back from exile and take the throne. He was a much smarter politician than his father. He loved getting his own way for sure, but he was also determined not to do anything that would, as he put it, send him on his travels again. But here's the thing, that central issue, who gets the final say, was never really settled. And when Charles II died, his brother, James II, took over. Now, James was an open and very devout Catholic, and just like his father, he was dead set on ruling like an absolute monarch. That old conflict? It was about to explode one last time. This final act, though, was completely different. There was no bloody civil war, no executions. It actually became known as the Glorious Revolution precisely because it was a nearly bloodless and finally decisive end to this century-long struggle. The speed of it all was just stunning. In June 1688, James II has a son, and suddenly there's the very real fear of a permanent Catholic monarchy. That same month, English leaders secretly invite the Dutch Prince William of Orange to invade. By November, William's army is on English soil. By December, James's own army has abandoned him, and he flees the country. And just like that, it was over. But there was a catch. Before William and his wife Mary could be crowned, Parliament made them agree to the Bill of Rights. This wasn't just a suggestion, it was a contract. It laid down the rules of the game once and for all. And it basically said, from this moment on, Parliament, not the king, would be the supreme power in England. And if you need proof of how real this change was, just look at this number, 0. What does that represent? That's the number of times a British monarch has vetoed an act of Parliament since 1707. 0. The battle was well and truly over. So why does all this matter to us today? Because the answer to that huge, century-old question was finally settled. The people, through their elected representatives, would have the final say. The core ideas of limited government and the supremacy of Parliament, ideas that are the foundation for modern democracies everywhere, were locked in place. So the struggle had established that Parliament would rule over the king, but it also left behind a deeper question, one that still echoes today. Once you've won the power, what does it actually take for people to govern themselves effectively and justly, without just falling into a new kind of tyranny all over again?